So today I'm going to talk about whether or not you should learn to play guitar from a book. And I'm hoping this isn't too bouncy today, because this thing just isn't sitting right. I never learned to play a guitar from a book, and I always thought it was kind of weird to learn to play an instrument by reading a book. But within the past year, I've started teaching my students from a book, and mainly because I always taught piano from a book. Piano always made more sense to me to learn from a book because it's a very visual instrument for me, you know, and mainly that's because of the way the keys are laid out. I digress. For some reason, it always just made more sense to learn piano from a book than it did guitar. Typically, new guitar students, you want to just start playing songs. I mean, the whole reason you pick up a guitar, usually in the first place, is to bang out like the killer riff, you know, that you hear or that you see somebody else ripping. So I always start off by teaching my students how to play something musical. Get right into a song. Start with a simple song, 3 or 4 chords. Cover the basics on how to do those chords in the order that they appear in the song, and then naturally, as you practice playing those chords, you start to learn the song. You accomplish 2 things at once. So the same approach goes to learning from a book. Now, if your goal is to be a well-rounded musician and you're relatively young, you have to think long-term. I wish I had started out learning from a book when I was younger, because what a book does for you is it keeps you focused and it keeps you moving forward in a certain direction. What happens if you just start learning songs and you're just scouring YouTube for video lessons is you get distracted. You lose focus and direction real quick. But a book is laid out in order to teach you the basics and have some sort of linear progression. So a book is great because you can just follow along. And the more you go, the more you learn. You get into deeper concepts. And you're going to catch a lot of things that normally you would miss by jumping around from lesson to lesson and picking up and just learning what your favorite songs are, your favorite artists, how they play. But you don't want to do one or the other. You don't want to just stick to a book and that's it. Nor do you want to just stick to playing songs and that's it. You need a variety. So I always offer my students lessons from the book along with lessons on songs, along with exercises to develop technique, along with personal experience and musical theory. And I can't say that one of them is any more important than the other because they all come together to allow you to express yourself musically. And if there's any one piece missing or lacking, that's going to show up in your playing. And in one of the earlier vlogs, I talked about identifying problem areas and mistakes and exposing them. And I talked about how you can ask yourself, what are you thinking about as you're playing? For instance, if I'm trying to figure out the next chord that belongs in the sequence or that will fit into the sequence, then I might need to understand intervals and or musical theory a little bit better. So it's important to keep this, which is sometimes called geometric learning, in place. A structured learning approach that comes from a book. Now the Mel Bay series is the old standby and continues to be a solid approach for any beginner. My only criticism about using the Mel Bay book is that it'll get very boring and could be confusing early on. I think that's your first priority, is to teach the beginner how to make a pleasing sound. One of the reasons I never pursued the violin is because the first time I found a violin, I picked up that bow and dragged it across the strings, and I could not get a pleasing sound out of it whatsoever. No matter how hard or soft I tried to play it, it just wasn't happening. Had I been able to pick that thing up and make a good sound, I might have explored it further. So I think that's number one. Number two is to have a goal. And that's real simple, because if you really understand why you picked up the guitar in the first place, or were drawn to the guitar for any reason, there's no right or wrong reason. Whatever that reason is, it's personal, and it's a good one. But it will tell you what your goal is. Maybe you want to be a rock star. Then your primary goal is going to be to learn creative expression. And now there's a lot of different elements to that, but you're really focused on expression. Now, if your goal is to be a session player, you want to be a recording artist, then your goal is going to be focused on knowledge of music, theory, intervals, harmonizing the major scale, etc. Like I said, there's a lot to it, but your main focus is going to be general music knowledge. Maybe you want to be in a bar band. If that's the case, then you're going to take a different approach. Your main goal and focus should be learning songs. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But whatever your goal is, that will give you a direction to stay focused on. And then you can add in these other elements, such as theory, technique, personal experience. All of that stuff can be added on to that. And that's how you get your own unique, individualized training program that's designed to fit you. So first you have to ask yourself, why did I pick up this guitar? And then that will naturally give you a hint as to what your goal should be. And then what you need to do is you need to go out and get a Mel Bay book, or whatever book you find easiest to understand and relate to. And then go get yourself a teacher. Somebody who can help get you off on the right track and use the lessons that you get from your teacher to develop solid learning habits, practicing habits, and so forth. But like I said, I wish I would have learned from a book, because even though when I was younger I had no desire to read music, or I didn't have the patience to read music, really. I felt like it was just too much work. To sit there and figure out, okay, good boys don't frighten animals, and then figure out, okay, is that line in the space? All right, is that above it? Is it quarter note? Is it half note? That was just way too much. I always learned to play by ear, and I did good that way. Only years and years later did I go back and say, wow, here I am in a situation where it would actually be quite helpful to know how to read music right now. So I wish I would have done that. As kids, we don't have the foresight to even think that we're going to live past 20. So that's why I say, if you're a beginner or a younger student, learn how to read music, learn theory, learn all that difficult stuff, but don't throw out the fun stuff. Above all else, learning to play an instrument should be fun. That's the only way you're going to create a lifelong habit of learning and developing these skills, is to really enjoy your time with that instrument. For so many of us, it's a meditation in itself. So many wonderful benefits to playing an instrument and expressing yourself musically. Yes, it can be very frustrating at times, but it's also very relaxing and very healthy for your mind, body, and soul. So always remember that. Approach it with a fun attitude and with just a little bit of structure. That's a recipe for success. So yes, to answer the question, I wholeheartedly recommend getting a good solid book to follow along. And then on top of that, find yourself a teacher, one in person if possible. If not, Skype, YouTube. As long as you can connect with that teacher and understand what the teacher is trying to get across, and you can ask questions, then you're good. And then on top of that, learn as many songs as you can. Try to copy your favorite artists. That's what we did way back in the old days before we had YouTube. So make sure you get off on the right foot. Get yourself a book. Most of all, have fun with it. I wish you the best of luck. Keep learning, keep growing, keep developing, help each other out, and keep rocking. Until next time, thanks for watching. I will see you later. Bye.